We have talked a ton of football for the past 8 or 9 months, mostly about 2022 and speculating and projecting about 2023. There will be guys that we have talked about that will actually be on the field here in the next few days, preparing for 2023 and preparing for a week 1 opponent, Utah State. So this is good news for all of us. Welcome into Hawkeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football. My name is Mark. We've got Corey Bratta with us from the Hawkeye of the Storm. You want to be locked in on from the Hawkeye of the Storm. This is the time of year, that 1 month push into the start of the season, and then you will be, I'm sure, content and satisfied to stay there for the rest of the college football season. Welcome in, Corey. Thanks for being here.
Do I look tired yet, Mark? I feel tired. We just started. It's August 1st, and I feel tired already. Is that a bad sign? You're tired.
I don't even know how to respond to that, because I try to take the optimistic look at life that I'm never tired. I hate to hear that. I hate when anyone says, you look tired, or are you tired? I always say, no, I don't get tired. I'm not tired. But there is reality. I'm a little tired myself.
So if anybody ever says you look tired, or you say, I feel tired, my typical response to that is, do you have a good sleep schedule? All right. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting to bed at a consistent time, getting up at a consistent time? I see Mark nodding, shaking his head. Are you taking in enough water during the day?
Yes, I will say that. I'm a water drinker, and I will say that I believe that I have more energy and stamina than most people my age, and I have worked and lived all hours of the day and night my entire life.
Are you a coffee guy? Have we talked coffee before?
No, I don't.
Really? You're not a coffee guy?
No
How
coffee.
about that? You just never got into it? You just never drank coffee?
Hate it.
Hate it. Hate.
Well, it's disgusting. The taste of it is disgusting to me.
Okay.
It is a liquid form. It is not disgusting. There are far more disgusting things that people partake in. I'm just saying I'm not a coffee guy. The last time I had any coffee, and I tell this story from time to time when the subject comes up, the last time I had any coffee was only to keep my jaw loose and warm while calling a state high school football playoff game in Ohio when I was about 21 or 22 years old, because it was like 9 degrees outside and I was freezing and my jaw was locking up. It was so cold. And I said, coffee. There was no hot chocolate available. Coffee, I'll drink it.
I will admit openly that I didn't used to be a coffee guy. I am a big coffee guy now. So, whatever that means. But you hate being reliant on something to wake up in the morning. But those are my two things. My top two things, Mark: sleep schedule, water, and then, of course, your diet, I think, has an impact on all that.
Of course, it does. But
I'll give
the coffee has a negative impact on all of that.
It can. Although if you check out, I'll put a little plug for one of our sponsors, Ascent Nutrition. Go over to my channel and check them out in my descriptions, because they have their premium mold and mycotoxin free coffee, and it's really good. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit groggy, because I'm out of that. I've been out of the Ascent coffee, and I've been drinking Starbucks ground. So, anyways.
No, for anyone who has had kids, knows that you go through a time of life where you just don't sleep. And then, during that time, I'm working all night and then taking care of kids all day and, sleeping 2 and 3 hours a day. And people would tell me they couldn't believe then that I didn't drink coffee, that I would be a prime candidate to be a coffee drinker. And I would say, no, I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, I have to have lots of cream. All right. So, I mean, it's not like I'm, this black coffee drinker. I mean, I don't drink straight up whiskey either. So if I'm going to have a nice little drink, I'm going to probably mix it with something. If that makes me a pansy, then I'll take it. I'll take that title, Mark.
Yeah. I never understood that. The labeling of guys who drink certain drinks. I always thought that was rather stupid. Like,
Are you a beer?
Who cares what anybody's drinking? Like, I never understood that. Like, you're a
Well,
man because you can. No, you're a man because you can do other things, not because of what you're drinking. I always
yeah.
thought that was idiotic.
I'm just curious. Are you a beer guy? We haven't really
No,
talked drinks either. You're not a beer guy. You're not a coffee guy. Are you a liquor guy? I mean, you
I
like
had a
a.
couple beers in Indianapolis, but I
Are you a
I could
bourbon?
care less if I had another beer the rest of my life. It doesn't taste good to me.
You like bourbon?
N- uh, no,
Okay,
not especially. This
interesting.
this is basically I have drank based on basically two occasions in my life. Not two specific occasions, but I mean two phases of life. One would be in my college days. I drank because everybody else drank and I got into it, and that's what I did for a few years. You go out, you drink. But it wasn't like why I went out. I went out to have fun and
Sure.
for other reasons, not to drink. And then the other thing is just with significant others, they like they enjoy wine. It's been my experience that women enjoy wine almost exclusively. They love wine, and so I'll drink wine with a significant other.
So Hayden in the chat says he wants to talk more about alcohol, beer, and wine. So what else you got, Mark?
Yeah, that is not a deep subject for me. It's really not. I couldn't even tell you what types of beers I tried because of uh my friends that they suggested some beers this past weekend. I don't remember what they were. They tasted slightly different than the other 38 beers I've tried in my life. When people always, say this beer tastes like this and this beer tastes so much radically different than this beer, they all taste like beer
Yeah.
with a tinge of something else.
All right. What are we talking about football related, Mark?
Football. Well, fall camp starting.
Fall camp starts tomorrow. We got
What
players.
needs to get accomplished this month?
What needs to get accomplished this month?
Yes.
Oh boy, that's a loaded. You're just trying to get little. You're just trying to create segments for your channel throughout this week. Well, I'll tell you what needs to be accomplished this month is you got to figure out a rotation up front. You got to figure out who your 5 best guys are. I mean, we've discussed this. I think Mason Richmond and Logan Jones are pretty much locked into their spots. But boy, your 2 guard spots and your right tackle, to me, are completely up for grabs, and rightfully so. Dejon Parker transfers in, and the perception is that he's going to have a chance to start. But Jennings Dunker has been impressive. He won another Solon hail bay, whatever it's called, Bay of Hail tossing competition here this past month. Dude's a freak athletically, physically, but it doesn't mean you can play right tackle. I know he ran a lot at right during spring. And of course, you have a plethora of guys on the inside that are competing for spots. Nick DeYoung, Connor Colby, Tyler Ellsbury, Bo Stevens, Rusty Feth. I mean, they have so many bodies. So where do these guys end up fitting in? I know I called into your Big Ten show after I hosted your Big Ten show for a while last night. I called in later. And that's one of my things. I'm higher on the offensive line. Maybe it's because I'm buying into hype. But if people have been following me, understand how I operate, I would hope the people who have followed me for the last couple of years know that I'm not a hype guy typically. And I don't buy into the narratives that are out there with the media. I knew as soon as Kirk Ferentz made a comment about the offensive line looking better during media days that was going to be the hot topic. And sure enough, it was with the media. That means nothing to me. I'll tell you what does mean something to me is when I hear from current players or people who are connected to the program, hey, this looks a lot better. And that's significant to me. And I did hear that again this afternoon from somebody well in touch with the program that they think the offensive line, it sounds like the offensive line has come a long way. Now, as Don Patterson has reminded us over the last couple of seasons, when that gets brought up, well, the offensive line has to get better. Well, here's the problem. The other defensive lines are also trying to get better across the league. So, how much of an improvement will we see? I don't know, but I think that's got to be priority number one. As I've stated you previously, though, Mark, my position to watch this fall is still wide receiver because you've got a couple transfers, a lot of hype around with Seth Anderson and Caleb Brown. Neither of them were listed on the preseason depth chart. I expect both of those guys to end up on the depth chart by end of fall camp, but Seth didn't play this spring, and Caleb just got here. They've got a couple of experienced walk-ons in front of them. Jacob Bostic's on the depth chart, as is Nico Ragaini and Deontay Vines. So those are the two position groups to follow. I think you obviously just want to avoid injury. You hope Cade's developing chemistry with his wide receivers. I think that trip out to California a little over a month ago probably really helped with some of those relationships. And I think I was told every receiver but one was on that trip. So don't ask me why the one didn't go. I would say I'm concerned about that, but maybe that's pushing the panic button too soon. And then defense, Mark, I just think this defense has a chance to be phenomenal. If they can stay healthy in the back end, and I'm talking at corner mainly, if they can stay healthy back there, this defense has a chance to be phenomenal. And the only hesitation I had back in the spring, Mark, was linebacker. Because I'm thinking, how do you replace Jack Campbell and Seth Benson? Those guys have been so productive for Iowa over such a long period of time. And I'm not saying that Nick Jackson and Kyler Fisher and those guys are going to be plug-and-play guys, but I think Nick Jackson's got a shot. He was an all-ACC guy at Virginia, and everything I've heard about Jay Higgins over the last 2 weeks has been positive. I mean, everything I've heard about his leadership, how he's stepped up as a verbal leader and a leader by example. His football intelligence is really high, and I'm just a lot higher on Jay Higgins now than I was even 2 weeks ago. So maybe I'm buying into some of the hype there, but that's also from things that have been said by coaches and players. So if the linebacker group is solid and they stay healthy in the back end, defense has got a chance to be really, really good.
And I know, Corey, that above all else, you're leaning on my feedback of Jay Higgins. That is where you're taking that first and foremost, is, of course, from...
Well, I'll tell you what it started with, Mark. All joking aside, what it started with for me was when Noah Shannon backed out of Big Ten Media Days and Kirk elected Jay Higgins. That's what kind of first made me think, maybe I'm sleeping a little bit on Jay Higgins. Now, just because Kirk sends a guy to Media Day doesn't mean he's one of the best players on the team, but it does say a lot about how Kirk views that individual as a leader. And the fact that Jay Higgins didn't start last year and didn't play a whole lot on defense, he played some. But for the most part, he didn't, because you had 2 or 3 linebackers in front of him. And one of them was Jack Campbell, who was voted the best linebacker in the country last year. So the fact that Kirk did that, and it's a little different with Luke Lachey at tight end because, although he wasn't the starter, he played a lot as the second tight end on this roster. But Jay Higgins, for him to be getting that much fanfare and credit prior to even fall camp starting tells me he's made some significant strides during summer and during spring.
So let's all understand something. The selection of players to represent the team in front of the media at media days should not be a big deal, but let's put this into focus here. So as long as you're representing both sides of the ball and you're selecting players that obviously represent the program well on and off the field, they're going to be good players. And again, they can communicate well. You would think that should be enough. And for those players that are not selected, they wouldn't care. Big deal. Doesn't matter. However, we're talking about 18 to 22-year-olds. I'm thinking of people that I know my age and in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s that would be petty, would be put off, would read into those selections. So Kirk did make a comment that I saw at Big Ten Media Days where he said he hates making this selection. So he does take it into account. He does try to get it right. And I heard a few other coaches make the same the same statement or a similar statement, that they have to let other players know, hey, I only have 3 selections. I wish you could come, would love to have you, but I only have 3 selections. And so you got to manage those sorts of things.
Here's the other part of it. And yes, we're reading into it to an extent, but here's the other reason why Jay Higgins being selected to go to Big Ten Media Days stood out to me, besides the fact that he wasn't a starter last year. You have other options on this team that, by all accounts, are tremendous leaders, like Nico Ragaini. Like, this is his last year, Mark. Like, he could have easily been in Indy. And if you think Kirk's not going to select a wide receiver, go back to last year. Tyrone Tracy attended. Well, I shouldn't say last year before last. Tyrone Tracy attended for Iowa. So it's not like Kirk's afraid to send a receiver. He could have also sent Logan Lee. You know, Noah Shannon can attend. Is he defensive tackle senior? Logan Lee's an experienced vet on the inside of that defensive line. They could have sent Joe Evans, who also returned for an extra year, as did Noah Shannon. So I guess my point is, there's guy like Kyler Fisher's a senior. Yes, he hasn't played either, but he is an experienced guy on special teams, just like Jay Higgins is. The fact that Jay Higgins got that sort of an endorsement from his head coach, I think, says a lot. And Jamari Harris is another one. He could have been maybe Jamari Harris he had the OWI a year ago. Maybe that would be kind of an odd storyline. But the point is, I've heard nothing but good things about Jay. And, you just think about those two guys together. Jay is an excellent athlete. Nick Jackson's numbers at Virginia indicate that he could somewhat fill the numbers role that Jack Campbell did, of just being a kind of a tackle machine, or a Josie Jewell even, who was kind of a tackle machine at Iowa, didn't have the physical traits that Jack did. If those two guys can do that, and you can stay healthy with your cash and play a lot of 4-2-5 with Sebastian Castro, stay healthy in the back end with Xavier Wampa and Quinn Schulte. Like I said, I think the guys who are going to be on the field for snaps 1, 2, and 3 on defense might be as good as we've seen here in at least recent memory. Like, I don't know if they're as deep at DB. I don't know if they're as deep at linebacker. I do know they're really deep at defensive line. But I think the guys who are going to be starting have a chance to be exceptional.
One note on the offensive line, one note on wide receiver play. Going to my buddy Phil Steele here for the offensive line, his brief analysis from 2022, looking forward to 23. So 5 offensive linemen back that started 3+ games in 21, and the career starts climbed to 44, meaning they had 44 career starts in 2022, which is a pretty low number, actually. But the starters were a junior, 3 sophomores, and a freshman, 2 upperclassmen, 2 deep. Defensive lineman Logan Jones moved to center, the same move that Tyler Linderbaum made, and the numbers were woeful. 2.9 yards rushing per carry and 38 sacks. They did take on a rugged schedule of opposing defenses. This year, they lose 1 backup, and they add second-team MAC offensive guard Rusty Feth and highly sought-after Saginaw Valley transfer Dejon Parker. The career starts climb to 114. That's how much more experience they have on this offensive line than last year's. However, of course, much of that is coming in from Division II and from Group of 5 play. The career starts climbs to 114, and they should be vastly improved and the best in at least 3 years. I don't know the best of what. I don't know what that means, but
I'm sure the best.
Oh, the best that they've been in 3 years.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. If this offensive line can be as good as 2020 was, and if you're looking at if assuming that the cycle can we finally turn the wheel enough to get 360 degrees here, if they can be what they were in 2020 during the COVID shortened year, I have no doubt this team can win 11 games. I'm not saying they will, because that's hard to do and hard to predict, but I have no doubt that this team. How many times have we said this? We brought up again last night on your call-in show. I think what people don't realize is they won. Yes, they went. I know they went 7-5 in the regular season, Mark, but they won 8 games last year with literally one of the worst offenses in the history of the Big Ten Conference, and a difficult schedule. That's what's insane about this. Bad quarterback play, bad play calling, difficult schedule. They win 7 games. So, yeah, you lost a couple guys. You lose Sam Laporte of the NFL. You replace him with Eric All and a improved Lachey. You lose Jack Campbell, but you prospectively replace him with Jay Higgins, who's taken a big jump, and an all-ACC linebacker in Nick Jackson. Riley Moss gets replaced by a guy who sat out all last year due to injury, who's a senior, and Jamari Harris, who has experience, and an improved Cooper DeJean. I'm just thinking, like, again, 7 wins, bad quarterback play, bad play calling, tough schedule. What's the result with good quarterback play, easy schedule, and what's the third one? Still bad play calling. Because I can't foresee. I mean, I have no way of expecting Brian to all of a sudden turn a corner. I hope he does. But I'm just saying, like, even those two variables, doesn't that give you at least 1 or 2 more wins? That's why I keep saying I think the floor given the schedule for this squad is 8 wins. Now, you know, the actual floor, Mark, I know you do this sometimes to me. When I say stuff like the floor, you'll say, well, the floor is actually 12 losses, right? They could lose 12 games, right? I mean, logically, but in all seriousness, with trying to be reasonable here, I think the 8 wins is probably the floor based on those variables, those factors.
Well, the schedule handed them 2 automatic losses, near automatic losses last year, that is being replaced by what some people would consider an automatic loss at Penn State, which I don't in any way. I think that they are a substantial underdog, and rightfully so, but I would not be shocked if they went to Penn State and won that game. I also, just to correct my stance on correcting you over and over about the 7-5 record, of course, we're evaluating and we're projecting toward a 12-game schedule this year. So I'm just reiterating the point that they went 7-5 in the regular season. But to their credit, they basically, in defeating Kentucky in a bowl game to win that 8th game, they defeated another Illinois or Minnesota on the schedule, another team of that caliber.
Without an offense.
Although the other team didn't have their number 1 draft choice at quarterback.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and
they were both missing players. It was a valid result.
For the people that say, well, they had Wisconsin at home last year, they get them on the road this year. They had Nebraska at home, they get them on the road this year. Okay, well, Iowa had, let's see, they had Minnesota on the road last year. They'll get them at home. They had Purdue on the road, where it was, Purdue was a house of horrors for Iowa in recent time. They beat them. They'll get them back at home with a new coaching staff. And we keep talking about the turnover in the staff. I think we're all just assuming that Luke Fickell's just going to somehow get it done and at least have them relevant. I mean, I expect that, but we don't know that that's going to happen. We don't know that it's just going to work. And so when you look at 4 different, think about that, Mark. There's 6 other teams in the West Division. 6. And am I right in saying of the 6, 4 of those 6 teams have different head coaches heading into this year? Think about that. That is insane.
Yeah.
The only holdovers are Brett Bielema and PJ Fleck, and Brett's entering his 2nd year, 3rd year?
Yeah, 3rd.
So, again, maybe Fickell will be better than Christ in year 1. Maybe Rule will be better than Frost in year 1. That's possible. Maybe Walters will be better than Brom. I don't think that's going to happen. I think maybe down the road, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just ranting and nobody cares what I'm saying right now, Mark, but I'm feeling a sense of positivity as we turn the calendar.
So that was my offensive line note. My wide receiver note is something that I sent you this week that I picked up somewhere on social media. Actually, I think it was, anyway, maybe you sent it to me. No, I sent it to you. Anyway, so it was a cut up of Big Ten Network analysts providing their breakout player in the Big Ten this year. Few of them said Cade McNamara, which I found kind of curious. I don't think he needs to be a breakout player. He's already an established player.
And by the way, he's not going to be a breakout player. Can I just say that right now? He is not going to be a breakout player.
So for him to be a breakout player, he would have to elevate from where he is to be like a Heisman finalist.
And he's not going to do that in the Iowa offense. He's
So
not doing that in the Iowa.
no, he's an established player. He's not a breakout player. I don't consider that breakout player. But Howard Griffith cited Caleb Brown as the breakout player in the Big Ten.
I would prefer someone other than Howard Griffith that stated that. Not that I don't have respect for Howard Griffith, but he doesn't. Is he right very much?
Well, I've not been keeping track, but
okay. Yeah, I mean,
he's been at the network since day one.
It's interesting that he would make that. Not that he's studying the Iowa depth chart, but it is interesting that I just it's if he's going to be as good as Howard Griffith expects him to be, he's going to have to be a starter.
We don't know if there was a lot of thought put behind that answer,
Correct.
and he just made that connection, like we've talked about. Top 50 to 75 player in the nation coming out of like a top 5 wide receiver in the country coming out Ohio State. Okay, he's going to Iowa. They need wide receivers. He must be able to play.
Was he that high, Mark?
Yes.
Really?
It's like number 75 in the country overall.
Let me pull up his 247. I knew he was a 4-star coming out of high school, but you mind if I share this so people can see?
Yeah.
What I'm doing here. We've done this before, but if Howard Griffith said it, it's worth revisiting. So I don't want to become a subscriber to any of this nonsense.
Oh, come on.
What, you want me to become a subscriber, Mark? I
never see that.
What's going on here? I don't want to do this. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Recruiting profile. Yeah, third best player in Illinois in the what class? 22 class. 13th best wide receiver in the country and 79th. I thought you said, what did you say? I thought you said 75. He was higher as far as.
I said 75.
70. Okay, you said 75. Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, and we know his offer list is well documented. He basically could have went anywhere: Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, Bama. So, I does not mean he will translate into a star guy right away. And how will he fit into the Iowa offense and how things are operated? I do think if there's anybody that can make this thing work, it is the Cade McNamara thing. Because, like, as much as I want to convince myself that, and I think we all do, we'd like to be able to admit that Brian is capable of calling a good game because we've seen him call good games in the past. But, like, at some point, you just have to accept that I think Brian is what he is right now, and it's going to take a while for him to become, he may never be a great play caller. But I think what Cade brings experience-wise from Michigan is valuable enough. And when you pair that with some athleticism at receiver from a guy like Caleb Brown, they got a chance of doing some things they haven't done. And it just seems like Kirk trusts Cade. Not saying he doesn't, he doesn't trust other people, but Kirk plays things close to the vest. We know that. Perhaps Cade gets him out of that mold. Cade's a different type of cat. He's a different type of leader. The way he carries himself, so much different. I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, and that's exactly what they said. Nothing against Spencer Petras and his leadership over the last 3 years. But Cade is a totally different type of leader. And I think that's what they need. They need, as long as Kirk is going to be here, they need a guy who's willing to kind of put himself out there and be a little different. I know Nate Stanley fit the Kirk Ferentz mold. Spencer Petras fit the Kirk Ferentz mold. Jake Rudock fit the Kirk Ferentz mold. CJ with his long Goldilocks hair, maybe he was a little bit of a bad boy. He's also the only quarterback who's, come from Iowa and actually had success in the NFL, if that means anything. But I just think Cade's different in a number of regards, and I think that could pay dividends.
Nathan Stanley could really sling it. He had a better arm than Cade McNamara. Now, that only...
What does that mean? What does that mean when you say a better arm? What does that mean? People say that all the time.
Throw the ball with more velocity.
Okay,
throw it further.
He can throw it further and he can throw it harder. What else?
Well, I think I don't know that he was more accurate. I would.
The numbers would say he was not.
Yeah, the numbers would say that he was not. But
I think the eye test would say he was
downfield a lot more than Cade McNamara did. But yeah, the numbers would say that he was not an accurate quarterback. But how many Iowa quarterbacks are accurate? It's, I think, recent quarterbacks. Some of the ones when you went back to Beathard and Rudock, then they were accurate. So that leads me to believe that it is the quarterback, not so much the offense. Although Brian's only been in place now for 6 years, but some of that's a byproduct of the offense, of course, and the
And let's remember,
receivers.
like
It all works together.
the criticism against Cade has nothing to do with his accuracy. I have not heard a lot of
No,
Michigan fans saying he's not
not
an
at all.
accurate quarterback. They say maybe he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world. He's
Yeah.
not the most mobile, but the dude can put the ball. I've compared him kind of to Jake Rudock, which is ironic because Jake Rudock ended up going to Michigan and having a pretty good year with them. But I think mobility wise, he's similar to what Jake was. And it appears on film that he's got a similar arm. Jake didn't have a huge arm, but Jake had a good enough arm. And people remember Jake lost the job, but he lost it to CJ Beathard because Beathard was going to transfer. And, Jake ended up having a good career at Michigan. So I think Cade is exactly, I agree with Phil Steele. I think Cade is exactly what Iowa needed. And Mark, Phil's not the only guy who said that.
Sure.
There were a lot of people who said that. I said it. We said it before, before he ever entered the portal. We said it during the season last year. Remember that? They were like, hey, if Cade's going to go somewhere, boy, pretty good spot to land.
We both did. Yes.
So
not that others didn't, but yeah, going all the way back to the season, we're looking at a Big Ten championship quarterback who lost his job and another quality program within the conference that needed a pickup at quarterback.
And I did find it amusing. Who was it last night that said on your show, one of your guys that comes on said something about how he thinks Hudson Card is going to be the third best quarterback in the Big Ten this year, which, maybe he will end up being that. But as of right now, I don't know how in the world you could possibly rank Card ahead of several other guys, including I would agree with you on probably the 5-star guys, at least Kyle McCord. I'd probably rank McCord ahead of Hudson Card, but I'd certainly rank Cade McNamara ahead of Hudson Card.
I enjoyed that back and forth just within that small window of time about the quarterback projections and rankings, because I took a hit from a few different people. You may have been one of them, highly ranking inexperienced quarterbacks. But I just find that if you're going to completely eliminate anybody that has no experience in college football, you're eliminating like a third of the players and saying we cannot rank them.
I'm not saying anything about eliminating guys, Mark. What I'm saying is when I see Pro Football Focus put out a top 5 quarterback list that includes 3 guys who really don't have much of any experience at the Power 5 level over a guy who came from Michigan who took them to a college football playoff, I just find that stupid. I just find it stupid.
I understand your point, but put me in the stupid category. I'll take the Penn State quarterback and the Ohio State quarterback over the Iowa quarterback today. I'll take either one of them. And I know that
right now.
Yes, right this second.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
If you said we're going to play the 2023 season, Mark, and you can take either Drew Aller, Kyle McCord, or Cade McNamara, I'm not taking McNamara. I'm taking the other two. Now, is there some risk there? Is there some risk involved? Absolutely, because they haven't proven it yet. However, I'm the same guy that said Bryce Young, I'm going to rank him as the best quarterback in the country, and he'd thrown 5 passes the year before that meant nothing. And
let me tell you,
the Heisman Trophy.
Let me tell you something, Mark. Who do you take at Iowa with the situation this year? Do you take Aller?
That's a different question.
No, it is a different question, but it's a valid question given our circumstances. Sure. Do you take Aller, McCord, or McNamara? And we know that those other 2 guys are 5-stars, but I think you take McNamara given the situation at Iowa.
That's much more valid of an argument to make. Absolutely it is. Yes, because you need a steady hand there.
He is what the doctor ordered for the situation, for the period of time we're working with.
Absolutely. That's not what I'm arguing. I completely agree with that. But we're just taking generic team. This is your team. We're starting a team 2023. Which quarterback do you want? I want the other 2.
And by
not
the
by
way,
a wide margin.
the comment in the chat that Aller and McCord have more upside. Well, of course they have more upside. I'm not arguing that they don't. We're talking about taking them right now for the 2023 season. And as freshmen, they're not. I guess they're not true freshmen, right? Is McCord? Are they both redshirt freshmen?
Yes.
So as redshirt freshmen, I just yeah, like you said, there's risk involved there.
They've both been on the field and thrown the ball around.
So is Tanner Mordecai. But like I said, you can't compare Tanner Mordecai's Power 5 experience to Cade McNamara's. It's just apples to oranges. And by the way, we know this. We don't have to rehash this over and over again. The only reason Cade McNamara lost the job at Michigan is because a 5-star J.J. McCarthy was ready to take over. That's the only reason he lost that job.
Sure. Yeah, he didn't lose the job. Somebody else won the job.
Exactly.
Now, Erica has brought up this player a number of times to extend on Tanner Mordecai. What's your take on Tanner Mordecai? Is he going to be intercepted 100 times when we play him? Also, Barta is gone. Celebration time. Bye-bye.
Well, first of all, I'm guessing that Eric is reading a little bit too far into one open practice back in the spring.
Yeah,
because it was well documented that Tanner Mordecai threw, I think, 3 picks in that one open scrimmage. If you look at his numbers, and I'll be the first to say it's totally different going from the American Conference, the pass-heavy SMU school, to Wisconsin in the Big Ten and going up against Big Ten defenses. But you look at the numbers in his career, he's got a career touchdown to interception ratio of 76-23. He's got 23 interceptions all time. Had a 33-10 ratio last year, 39-12 the year prior. So, I mean, he's going into a different animal of a conference and with totally different competition level. I wouldn't read into the one showing too much.
Sure. I'm right there with you. It's a huge step up, not just into the Power 5, but possibly the best defensive conference in college football. However, we will look at, and I don't know the answer to this yet, when he played Power 5 teams last year, or teams that are good enough to be Power 5 teams. They went to Maryland. They lost this game in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game. Really good game at Maryland. He went 29 of 54. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 369 yards. TCU, 27 of 49, 55%, 372 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Central Florida, 28 for 45, 295, and an interception. Cincinnati, 15 of 25, 105, touchdown, and an interception. I'll throw BYU in there. 27 of 37, 218, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick.
Am I confusing? Wasn't there a game? What game am I missing? Was it Houston game? It was, wasn't it? 380 yards for Mordecai that day, 54 yards rushing, had 9 touchdown passes and 0 picks. Against a Houston team that didn't Houston win a bowl game?
Yes.
No, that defense is terrible.
Yeah.
It was garbage, right?
9 touchdowns.
9 touchdown passes, and that kid's with 0 picks. So, I mean, it is Houston's a Power 5 team this year. They weren't a Power 5 team last year. They are a Power 5 team this year. To do that, I don't care where you're at. That is impressive. Yeah. Nice.
How many did Iowa went for 7?
For the year.
Yeah.
For the year. Offensive, or is that passing only?
That was passing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't have 7 offensive touchdowns the whole season.
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'd have to go back, but I wouldn't have shocked. I would have probably just agreed with you if you had said it.
Thank you for the question, Erica. We appreciate it. Yes, Tanner Mordecai will have to step up considerably. And there is much talk about Wisconsin trying to maybe fit a square peg in a round hole with the roster that's been built on run, play action, tight sets, and now wanting to space people out and throw the ball downfield.
do they have the athletes on the outside? I know they brought some guys in from the portal, but
yeah, I think they're too smart to try to transition this in one season.
So the question is, can Luke Fickell and his staff coach that way? Because he really hasn't had to do this before, right? I mean, when he took over at Ohio State, he obviously had the athletes to do what he wanted to do, and for the most part at Cincinnati, totally different level of football. You can get away with some of that stuff in the AAC. But you're right, if you're trying to spread teams out in the Big Ten with a bunch of, let's be like Iowa. It'd be like Iowa trying to spread teams out right now. Like, they don't have the athletes. They just don't. And I wouldn't have the confidence that Iowa could do it even with Brown and with Seth Anderson and those guys.
Matt Rule talked about running the football and different ways to do that. He was asked about being committed to the run. He said, yes, we will run the football and we want to run it between the tackles, but that doesn't always mean that you line up in those types of formations to let people know we are ramming the ball down your throat. He says, we'll spread people out, 5 wide receivers, and get those linebackers stretched out there on the perimeter and back people up, and then we'll run it right off tackle.
By the way,
Rule was a great interview. Matt Rule was, he was the most impressive guy there.
I told you I was impressed with him. I was impressed with Fickell and what's his face from Purdue?
PJ
Walters. What's that?
I said PJ.
No, I was not impressed with. I know you were impressed with. Did you like him more that you saw him in? This is probably the first time you ever saw him in person, wasn't it?
It is.
Was his head as shiny in person as it is on TV?
I think PJ does everything possible to present himself well in public. So who knows what the grooming regimen is. I think it's pretty extensive.
Little turtle wax doesn't hurt anything. So here's what I'll say. And I'm going to be coming out with my predictions. I don't know when your official season predictions, record predictions are coming out. I'm going to be publishing some content here over the next few days. And I can't tell you for sure when this is dropping, but I can tell you, and I kind of teased this a little last night. I'm not going to announce who it is, but I had the opportunity to talk with a star on the Iowa football team last night and recorded an interview, which will go live on the show via podcast here in the coming days. And when I say a star, I mean a star on the 2023 Iowa football team. And very insightful interview, really exciting dialogue, I thought, from a guy who has an opportunity to do really, really great things this year and beyond. So I'm looking forward to that, but stay tuned to my channel because we'll be publishing that here in the coming days.
Yes, From the Hawkeye of the Storm is the place to be. If there's anyone listening to us right now that is not subscribed, From the Hawkeye of the Storm should be subscribed here as well. And please like the video on your way out. And also keep in mind that if it's better for you on occasion to listen to us, you can go to Spotify, Google, Apple, anywhere else?
Amazon, yeah.
All those. And go to From the Hawkeye of the Storm, and then you can catch our weekly podcast here.
Did you ever go back and listen to those renderings?
Not yet. I will do that. Corey says it's a good listen.
I think it's I'm not going to take anybody away from YouTube. I think it's just as good, if not better, on audio. So definitely check out the podcast if you haven't already.
Good stuff. Corey, thank you so much for making this happen as always. Be back, everyone, for edition number 105 next Tuesday at 4:30 Central, folks. Next Tuesday, 4:30 Central. Maybe we'll have a few nuggets from fall camp. We'll see you then.